We have a number of yards like this one that were started in June. Actually, they were started with queen cells in early June, so I guess the queens would be considered late June queens, started laying in the latter half of June. I just thought we'd go through these and kind of show what we're up to. I believe these will be our very best colonies next year. Generally speaking, queens that are raised past the spring peak brood rearing period tend to be your best queens the following season. That way they've not been through that high mileage period of time. Around here that would be, April into May when they're laying wide open. If they don't have one of those cycles under their belt, they will be the best queens the following season. So for us that means any queen raised in mid-June on would fit that description. These were only started with 2 frames of brood and a frame of food and a queen cell back then, so we're going to have a look at them. They got let's see, I think this was the buckets on there right now were their second feeding. We're going to give them their third feeding today, and today we're actually going to go through each colony and determine what's going on, if they have a good queen. Are they a little smaller than the others? Could they benefit from a boost? There might even be a few in there that are getting on the large side, and of course those would be the ones that we take a frame of sealed brood out and donate to the smaller ones. We have increased the weight of our feed now. Up until this week we've been feeding 1 to 1. We've increased it to 1 1/4 to 1. The reason being is we no longer need to feed thinner syrup for stimulating brood rearing because we're just on the verge of our fall pollen flow beginning. We're starting to see a couple loads come in. We did at the last yard. The goldenrod isn't really open here yet, but it's really close, and there's other things that have been coming in, wing stem and other plants. Although they're not absolutely packed with pollen in this yard, and they are starting to bring it in, and it will increase over the next week to 10 days. So I'll go up there and have a look-see and see what they're up to. Also, another point of interest in this yard is I've had this yard since 1995, and we just had to put a bear fence up 2 weeks ago because for the first time ever, a bear has been spotted in this neighborhood. We're way below our shop. This is one of our lowest elevation, farthest south yards, and typically the bears are at least 6 or 8 miles away from this location. They have to cross a lot of properties before they can get here, but for some reason I guess they're becoming more saturated. It's happening at our house too. We're getting more bears in our neighborhood too. It's just part of the deal these days. So anyway, we have a brand new bear fence up here too. All right, anxious to see what they look like. It's hard to mow these yards without getting some grass on something, unless they're just one long straight line, then you can blow the grass away, but in this case it's kind of hard to do. So, as can be seen, we're using our own homemade experimental, got to add that word in there, experimental oxalic acid extended release strips made with Swedish dish towels. Yeah, these guys look okay. A little bigger. So what we're on the lookout is anything that's excessively large or anything that's excessively small. These right here in front of me look fine. They'll be in plenty good shape for winter. That one's a little stronger. This one's a little stronger. In a pinch, we could take a frame of brood out of this one and this one, but I think these are good enough. They're 1, 2, 3, 4 frames of brood, maybe 4.5 frames, or excuse me, 4 frames of bees right now. This one looks like it might be just a teensy bit more. They're going to have 2.5 to 3.5 frames of brood in there, and that's plenty good for the end of August. We're just entering the phase that I call the fall buildup. In other words, they're starting to rear the winter bees soon, building up for winter. And these look fine. These look they'll be fine for winter. Another gallon bucket. And they might get several gallon buckets. As long as they keep expanding the nest, I'll keep feeding them. But we got to be very careful about plugging out the brood nest. So in about 2 or 3 weeks from now, that's going to be a concern. We'll have to be careful not to overfeed them. Of course, we got these rims, 1.25 inch, 1.5 rims on the colonies to allow the bees to walk on those strips. And those rims will come in handy later in perhaps January if we choose to start feeding fondant, stuff like that. These bees are not in our strip study or strip research project, whatever you want to call that, simply because they got started later and they would have skewed the numbers.
Yeah, you see that there?
That's a good sign, yeah. They built their own little bridge there.
Look at that. They're not even that big, but they had a good...
That's a good size for right now, considering what they started out as. They are growing. They are. So that's a good one. So what I would do here is go ahead and do it right, feed it, do everything, but put a tuft of grass, something on the lid so we know to come back to that if we need to frame a brood.
Oh, okay, all right.
Just kind of mark it with something. So John's pretty good about putting these sticks in here as a bridge for the bees to climb on to the bucket. And with the smaller colonies, we definitely see a difference with these rims on here. If we don't give them a bridge, they take the syrup about half as fast.
So we did do a few spot checking.
Yeah, so on 8/11, which isn't long today, it's the 26th today, so that's not long ago. They had 2 mites in an alcohol wash at that time. And with our recent research on strips, we feel comfortable enough with our homemade strips that this will be a good enough treatment to get them into December when they can get a vaporization. Many more than that. If it went up to a 3, 4, 5, I might consider doing something else. I'm really resisting giving these little guys Apiguard. I do not want to shut the queen down right now. I want to have them laying as much as they're capable of at this moment. I think the strips are going to work in this instance. The numbers are pretty low in this yard. This is a very small yard for us. It's just 12 nukes. I had intended to move these nukes shortly after we put the queen cells in them, but we never could get to it. Between rain and other issues, we just didn't get it done. They were kind of honestly low on our priority list. So we're here exactly 24 days after we put the cells in, which is perfect timing. I mentioned this in a previous video. The reason the 24 days works really well is that if they accepted the queen cell we put in, we'd see sealed brood, and in this case we do. And if for any reason they didn't accept our cell, or the cell didn't hatch, or the whatever, and they raised their own queen, we would see eggs and very young larvae on the 24th day. But they wouldn't be going full-blown laying worker yet. Occasionally on the 24th day you might see an egg or two, but usually not even that. Luckily, this little group of nukes is 100% take. They're all our queens that hatched, mated, and are now heading the colony. They're in good shape. On the 19th day, I had John and Seth come in here with the rest of the nukes we made at that time period and do an oxalic acid vaporization. If you do the math, the 19th day, perhaps the 20th, is about as good as it gets for being broodless or no sealed brood. Even if they have their queen mated and laying, she won't have any sealed brood yet. And then if they raise their own on the 19th day, that's not a problem. And also, any brood that may be left over from the previous queen is really close to being gone. You might have just a few cells of sealed broods. So when you do the math, the 19th day is really the best you can do for doing a vaporization. We all know that the mites in the colony are mainly in the sealed brood. And of course, that 19th day, there'd be very little sealed brood, in some cases none. So when you do the vaporization, you're really handling the mites quite well. And they came here early in the morning. They were flying a little, but not a lot. So I would, without even checking, I would just surmise that these bees are in pretty good shape, mite numbers wise. And then we just gave them, everyone took, and then we just gave them a gallon bucket of 1-to-1. We gave them 2 Viroxan strips. It's just a 5-frame box, so I think 2 strips is ample. And a little bit of probiotics. And I believe right where they're sitting, they're going to be good for winter. They're in really good shape. Of course, they're not a full 5 frames of bees yet, but I think over the next month or so, they'll grow into be something that will actually overwinter on this spot. And then we have all this wing stem and goldenrod on the verge of blooming, so I think they'll do quite nicely right here for the winter. Field repairs, John?
Yeah, doing maintenance. Yeah, it pulled off the, I think your eye pulled off. I pulled off the wire.
We've got about 36 chargers in the field right now, and they're a constant struggle to keep running. There's always some little thing going wrong. This yard's a little larger than the last. Of course, they were started a little sooner too. These queens started laying in mid-June, 2 frames of brood into food, just like our typical way of starting nukes, and some of them are pretty full. We're starting to take buckets off and put jars on simply because we don't want them to plug out too much. It's just late August. It's too soon to really get them super heavy. Want to make sure they have plenty of room in the brood nest to lay. So we're kind of backing off on the feed on some of these. And then when it gets later, like late September, we'll really make kind of a last ditch effort judgment to get them heavy for the winter. These are in really good shape. These are all Caucasian queens. We have a lot of Caucasian queens that are not showing up in our strip research project, which was kind of a mistake. I see some yellow pollen coming in over there. Very close to goldenrod time. In fact, it may even be a little goldenrod coming in now. We have 5 or 6 varieties in this neighborhood, and one of the varieties starts a little earlier than the rest. This yard is an interesting place. I've had it for, I don't know, maybe 10 years. I like seeing this ironweed around. If you go online, it will tell you that bees do work this plant. And we occasionally see bees on it in this region, but I don't think it's creating much of a flow of pollen or nectar for us. Right now we got a bunch of yellow pollen coming in from wing stem, which is nice to see. As far as this ironweed, we've just not experienced much out of it. It is beautiful. It's pretty to see in the fields.
I know it is.
Yeah.
Something to do. There's plenty of it for here.
Yeah, this is a good spot. We're standing in kind of a mucky area. I don't know if that has to do with why there's such a nice stand of it here. This is low. I would not want to drive our truck out here. I think we'd get stuck actually.
Yeah, this is like, yeah.
John likes the machine. John's
that
decided
was
that he
it.
likes the machine.
Yeah, once she showed me the, I had it on full blast. I was like, it's not, I didn't realize that you have to get it, that's not, the key is not the fastest. It goes just the right, I don't know.
What kind of queen we got in this colony?
Golden West.
Golden West, I should know by now. The big colonies tend to be the Golden West. Our Caucasians are running a little bit smaller in size, which is predictable. That's normal.
Dude, this colony right here is bringing the pollen in.
Pollen?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, it's this wing stem that's coming in. Yeah, wing stem. There's a ton of it blooming right now.
That's cool.
This yard's a little unique. when you compare it to our others, because it was, most of the colonies in here were requeened with a nuke that had been grown over a double screen board. Went down below, killed the queen in the bottom, and combined the nuke that was in a deep, made it a very strong double deep colony. But what's unique is that the bottom was treated with our homemade oxalic acid strips, and so was the nuke in the top. And when we combined them, we kept all the strips. The top would have had 3, maybe 4, I can't remember. The bottom would have had 4, and we didn't throw the strips away, we just threw them all in. And now, what's interesting, John just pointed out, is this yard is nothing but 0s and 1s. And now that they've been just, when we pulled our sourwood crop, we pulled the old strips and gave them 4 fresh ones, and now I want to make really sure that these numbers aren't climbing. I hope we didn't make a mistake by simply treating back with strips rather than doing Apigard or something. I'm trying to be cheap, trying to be frugal, John.
Oh, no, yeah.
I don't want to pay for the Apigard if I don't have to.
You know, it's yeah, I don't blame you.
So we already checked one colony, that one in the corner, and it had the same amount of mites that it did when we were here checking them last time. So I'm hoping this shows the same thing.
Yeah, hopefully. There we go, yeah.
This colony was interesting. It had a swarm that was on the box, and I found the queen and killed her and got it out of there. A really small swarm. Queen was small. She looked like she was shrunk just for flying purposes. Have no idea which colony it came from, and I'm not going to try to figure it out right now. I kind of wonder what some of these late season swarms are, what it means. Perhaps they superseded and the old queen left with a handful of bees. I don't know. But now that the queen is gone out of here, I think we'll just crack this lid, and I think all these bees will just go inside. What you got, John?
0.
Another 0. Okay, so they're holding their own.
Yeah, let's say the strips are...
Yeah, the strips are working, and that's what we find with our own homemade strips. They really do work pretty good. We'll check one more, and then we'll call it good if this one's good too.
Okay, hopefully, yeah. I hope it's the same grade.
Pretty nice and heavy here too.
Yeah, these are heavy colonies. That one has 5 strips in it. Okay. Sometimes if we're at the end of things and we have 1 strip left over, we'll just throw it in a colony. I think tomorrow or the next day I want to do a test and do a bunch of washes and put alcohol in 1 cup and soapy water in the other, and take all the bees off the same frame so we can compare alcohol and soapy water. We've done a few alcohol tests here, and it's kind of not what we expected. It kind of was showing us that the alcohol was working a little better. We need to get to the bottom of that.
As of right now, it's a 0, but I'm letting it settle, because sometimes they'll...
So it's a 0. We're good. And they're slowly wandering in. Of course, you'd wonder if the bees inside are fighting with them, and I don't see any evidence of that. I think they're letting them come on in. Okay. This entire yard was checked for mites 3 weeks ago. Did the usual ½ cup of bees and a mite wash. And every single colony came up with either a 0, and actually they're mostly 0s. And then there's a few 1s. And then there's this thing right here. This had 28. John switching totes. We've been going through a lot of sugar syrup now.
You don't want to pick up what he was talking about.
I don't want to know what he was talking about?
You
Okay.
don't want to know.
Okay. All right. This yard had Canadian row destructor strips on it through the summer. The mites came out very low when we checked them 3 weeks ago. At that time we put on our own homemade strips, and we've just spot checked here to see if the numbers have gone up or down. and they seem to be holding pretty firm. Alls we had in here the last time was zeros, ones, might have been a couple of twos, so they're still doing the same thing. So I think I'm comfortable leaving our own homemade strips in and considering those as our fall mite treatment. Next time they'll get any kind of treatment at all will be in midwinter when they're broodless. They'll get oxalic acid vaporization. And of course I might do some spot checking in a few weeks just to make sure I'm not doing something really stupid. I get a little paranoid with these mite treatments. I've really been kind of caught off guard several times in my career where the mite numbers were just out of hand and I didn't realize it. Presumed something that was working, assumed it was working, and come to find out it wasn't. If there's anything I've learned in the last few decades is check what you've done and make sure it worked.